Good morning, boys and girls. It was so nice to see so many of you at the parade yesterday, seeing all of your signs and just being able to see your faces in person. So thank you for all of those that came. Okay, let's get down to business and let's look at our Narnia lesson for today. So you should have already read the instructions. You need to read or listen to chapter 5 and 6. The pages and the read alouds are posted in the slides. And then you can watch this mini lesson, which is what you're doing right now. And then there are 2 assignments to turn in, like always. So I want to go back to our plot pyramid that we've looked at last week. So as we go on, we'll still get introduced to some, relationships and characters. So we are starting to now look at the rising action. Okay, so we are going to start climbing and climbing up to this climax. We're going to find out more about an introduction to the conflict and the events that are leading towards that conflict. So just keep that in mind as we're reading these future chapters. So today's lesson is reviewing and going back to the conflicts, and that's where we're at right now with these chapters. So I want to remind everybody what a conflict was. A conflict is a struggle between 2 opposing forces, usually involving the antagonist and the protagonist. And if you remember from our lesson before, antagonist is usually the bad person in the story, and the protagonist is usually the good person, the hero in the story. And then we looked at types of conflict. Okay, so you can always keep these in mind too as you're reading. And you notice I used to say man. That's the old term. People used to say man versus man. But man in that time also included women. So I just changed it to be person. So person versus person, or person versus self, and so on. So I wanted just to do a quick review on that so you can have that in mind as we're dealing with conflict. So now we're going to add another layer to conflict, and not just look at types of conflict, but we can also look at sorting conflicts into 2 categories: major and minor conflicts. And then we're also going to see in chapter 6, you probably would have already noticed it since you've already read it, that we're going to see a lot to do with decision making. Okay, and both of these, we want to keep in mind this key concept of perspective, because we all have our own perspective and our own points of view on how we want to make decisions with conflict and what we think is a major and a minor conflict. So I'm going to show you some of that as an example. So, for example, these are some conflicts that we've seen so far that the children have expressed in the chapter. Okay, and I'm going to sort them how I think I would sort them, but you can also just think about, do you agree with me, or do you think you would have sorted it in a major or a minor? Okay, so for example, Mr. Tunmis has been taken by the Mongram. I think that's a pretty major conflict. He's missing, he's an important character, so I'm going to move that into a major conflict. The children don't know where Mr. Tumnus is. That's a pretty big deal because they're trying to save him. The children are cold. It's kind of a minor. I mean, they have jackets. Okay. Children don't know their way around Narnia. Maybe I would put that in a minor conflict because they're kids that can be explored. And children have no food. I'm going to put that in a minor conflict as well. And some of them, you might be kind of hard too to decide. But that's just what I would do for now. So that's my perspective on what I would think a major and a minor conflict would be. Okay? Now, no matter what type of conflict it is, decisions always have to be made. And sometimes the decisions the characters make can lead to a resolution, which is a solution to the problem, or it could even lead into more conflict into the story with other characters. Okay? Which can cause some confusion. So keep that in mind. And it's also important to think about perspective, like I just said in this lesson. Okay? So for the assignment today, you're going to have to think about the decision making. So I just reviewed the major and minor conflicts that they've had. And then we saw a big debating going on in chapter 6 between the siblings. So here's your assignment for today, assignment number 1. Here are the 4 siblings: Peter, Susan, Emmett, and Lucy. So in that chapter 6, all of them have expressed their concerns about whether or not they should go and save the fawn. Okay, so you can see in quotes here, This is what Peter thought. He said, "I am worried about having no food with us. I'd vote for going back, only there doesn't seem to be any certainty of getting into this country again." So you're going to fill in all these empty boxes and tell me, what was his final decision? Okay? What was the resolution? What did he decide to do? And you're going to do the same for Susan, for Edmund, and for Lucy. Now I'll give you some as examples to help you get started. Okay? So you can just make sure that you give the text evidence. And the text evidence is always in quotes, in quotations. If you can take a screenshot of the paragraph, you can also put those in as well. Okay, so this is your assignment for chapter 6. We're looking at the discussion that Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy had on deciding on what to do with Mr. Tumnus. And then your last assignment is the same as always, a few comprehension questions. Because we did do 2 chapters, I did include this question is from chapter 5. What leads the children to hide in the wardrobe? And then questions 2 and 3 are from chapter 6. So make sure you are being responsible and using your thinking skills and getting both of those assignments done for today. And that's it for me. Bye for now.